Okay. Okay. So, like I said, don't ask me questions because I don't have answers. I am not a subject expert on what I'm talking about. What I'm going to talk about is an experiential journey, my own experiences, what I think, and some things that I have collected from here and there. So I think Shireen used the word rambling, and probably I will ramble a little bit, but it's up to you to pick up the pieces and decide what you want to look at and what is it that you want to focus on. We all have some sort of bias within us. We may say that I'm open-minded, I'm open to all experiences, but there are certain biases that play within us even without us knowing. And it takes, I don't know how we can discover it. It takes a lot of questioning to actually acknowledge that bias. And it started for me with my Netflix addiction. You know, during lockdown, continuously watching Netflix, I found myself, and of course, you know, the algorithms will throw you at you things which they feel that you prefer watching. And here I was, when I was looking at what is trending now or what is recently added, the one thing that I avoided was anything which had an all black cast. Whether it was rom-com, whether it was crime thriller, whether it was adventure, somehow for me, white people or then the Indians fitted into it, not anybody else. And I thought to myself, why am I thinking like that? What is it making me stop watching those movies which have an all black cast or is focused towards that color? That color brought something, some memories to me, and I will go back to my own childhood, that we are a community like Sudha, Aruna, myself, we are a community which is matrilocal, where the uncle is the head of the family, women own property, they never leave their homes. So the women are kind of strong personalities. And my first memory, I don't even remember how small I was, is that we had one of my grandmother's cousins in the ancestral house, who couldn't stand dark children. And we were told implicitly, don't go in front of her, it annoys her. You know, like my mother would say, she is there, so don't go that side. It was like, I looked at her and, okay, if you don't want me to go that side, I'm not going that side. That's all. But implicitly, and if Mala is here, she will remember, we were all dark. So in Malayalam, the word dark is black. So we just avoided that lady. And my mother had a sister who had 4 daughters, exactly like how my mother had. They were all fair, you know. And we had a grandmother who was not your typical grandmother. She was acid tongue, and she never knew how to be a grandmother, a loving grandmother. So she would make these awful remarks that she would tell my mother in front of us that I can see your sister's daughters getting easily married because they are all fair. I don't know what will happen to your blackies, you know, your 4 blackies. Exactly in that harsh, and if I were to say it in Malayalam, many people would resonate with it. Kaka Karmbigal means black as crows. And what will happen to them? And I'm glad that you're educating them, at least. For their education, they may get a husband, you know. At that point in time, I don't know why our psychological defenses didn't completely break down, and we were not, we didn't end up as psychopaths killing all geriatric people. I don't know why that didn't happen. but we took it, and I think it was because, and Sarah, all credit to you English guys, it was because of the English. We were studying in English medium schools, we were reading Enid Blyton, we were living the Scarlet Pimpernel life. We never felt connected with the natives, you know. So I could look at I could look at my grandmother and say that, what is this lady talking about? Does she have any clue? Probably that saved us from complete disaster as adults or as human beings, you know. So there's one good thing that you guys have done, Sarah, as for colonialism, as far as colonialism goes. But the thing is that you grow up feeling not beautiful. You grow up thinking that you are not beautiful, you are ugly, and there is nothing to look at you. You go through life, and my first moment of epiphany happened when I was working in Bangalore. In Bangalore, you have these high-rise tall glass buildings. And I was walking past one of those glass buildings, and I just turned, and reflected in that glass was a very pretty lady. And I said, oh, wow, what a pretty lady. And I realized it was me. It was nobody else, but it was me. I was shocked, to think that that lady whom I saw, whom I thought was pretty, was me. It took a little bit time to recover, but that's when I realized that I'm not all that bad. That is not that I'm not ugly, or I'm not just because I'm dark, I'm not beautiful. That was the moment of realization. But till then, it was drummed into you somehow that because your color was not fair, you were not beautiful. And I don't know how many of you would have had that experience, but that was mine. And later, when I met people, the color has not bothered me, but somewhere that dark is not good is kind of ingrained when I flip and avoid an all-caste black movie. That's what I realized. And I thought to myself that, where are these prejudices coming from? Where is this conditioning coming from? And my daughter Priyanka said that you cannot talk about the blacks and other systemic racism, because even that is a kind of racism. You can only talk about your own experiential journey about what racism means. And then I said that there are many things that come across, and I'm going to put that across to you all and see how that goes. And one of the first things that everyone will agree with me is that racism is a social construct. There is no valid evidence for racism, either genetically, evolutionary, or neuroscience or anything. Nothing supports that idea of race. And I had various discussions with various people, and everyone kind of contributed to things. And this friend of mine who's a who's a doctor, she specializes in geriatry. She sent me this slide, which I'm going to share with you. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So she sent me this. She said, this is racism explained for dummies, that the colors may be different, but inside we are all the same. Like she says that, she said that race is just one layer of the epidermis. That's about it. Nothing below is focused towards systemic discrimination or any other form of prejudice against the color. So that was her contribution in tongue-in-cheek, and she said that in the medical profession, yeah, Shireen, unmute yourself. Unmute, unmute.
Sorry, I have something to add regarding race. Do you want me to do it now or do it later
Just
on?
let me go through a few things and then I'll come back. Then you can, yeah? A few of my thoughts and then Shireen.
No fuss, thanks.
Okay. So what she says is that skin tone is determined by the amount and kind of melanin that is created by melanocytes. Those with darker skin produce more melanin and those with lighter skin produce less melanin. The grading of skin tones across the world is determined by the area, climate, and terrain of a person's ancestral homeland. So in the past, where you come from, where enough sunlight was there, that is what determined your skin type, nothing else, right? And the form as Homo sapiens, when we started as hunters gatherers, we were we formed groups and migrated, say, from Africa to the other parts of the world. So when you formed groups to migrate, that has left a distinct signature in our DNA. So you needed to cooperate with each other in order to survive. So one of the anthropologists, Kim Hill of Arizona State University, says, anything you need in daily life, the person next to you will lend you. Water, sticks for firewood, a bow and arrow, a carrying basket, anything. So the forming of the group buffers the individual against the environment. So our adaptation is into group living, and hence we favor people within our group, and we look with suspicion on people who are not in our group. Now, this forming of group is also mercurial, they say, that in experiments conducted by researchers, that people easily form coalitions based on meaningless traits such as preferring one painter over another, or favor. Then once the group is formed, they favor people in their own group rather than people in a different group. So we human beings are the ones who cooperate extensively with each other as a group, because for human adaptation, forming groups has been quintessential. So if you look at this idea, then we can see that how our groups, each of our groups are formed, and how we tend to cling to our own groups. That is what that's what it tells us. Shireen, do you want to say something in this context then?
Yes, I will share. As regards the groups, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As regards groups, Rekha, it's also in sociology, it's defined as ethnocentrism, where each group thinks that they're the sense of superiority. So if it is my race, I have an ethnocentric attitude towards my race. So that's term that is coined in sociology. Okay, George, I call him Pink Floyd, sorry on that. After George Floyd's death, I came across a psychologist in the US, Resma Menachem, who does race. He's into healing of trauma. He's a trauma specialist. And he talks of three types of traumas that he deals with: the police body, the white body, and the black body, right? And I have taken some excerpts from his book. So just a minute, I will find it. Rekha, I'll have to share it with you, and you'll have to share it because I don't know how to do it.
You can screen, it's enabled multiple screen sharing. So, you know what Shireen is saying is also what they say, that our cruelty to others starts with our kindness to our own group, you know. Shireen, are you able to share the screen?
Let me see.
Yeah, you can. It's multiple screen sharing. It's enabled. Just click on the green button and share.
What's the screen? Rekha, I'm going to waste your time, Rekha.
What was
Okay,
the
I'm going
sentence?
to
What
continue
did you
talking
say?
and
What did you say just now, Rekha?
Yeah, you continue
sorry, okay.
because don't
I
want
was
to waste
saying
time.
that researchers say that our cruelty to them, other groups, starts with our kindness to our own or kindness to us, right? That's what we are saying.
I don't know if it's related. Isn't it fear? Isn't fear the main cause?
Uh, very often,
Fear of unknown.
yeah, fear of the unknown. Yeah, and that's the next thing that I wanted to bring out is that the color black in anthropology, when human beings started out as apes, darkness was danger because you couldn't see what is there out there, and hence you feared that darkness. And that fear of the unknown is what made us kind of defensive. But a group, when it is formed, can also look at another group, even if it is not threatened, still can whip up emotions thinking that they are different from us. Like if anyone has read the Ku Klux Klan trials, many of the people who were members of the Ku Klux Klan said that when they looked at the black people, they felt that they were not human beings, that they could withstand more pain than others, and they didn't feel that they were actually inflicting pain on them, that they were not really fully human. And in the dark ages, when the Europeans started discovering other continents, when they looked at when they went to Africa or West Indies, when Columbus discovered the West Indies, when they found people different from them, it allowed them to kind of justify that difference in when inflicting any kind of rules, regulations, anything. It helped in when you believe that they are different from us, they don't feel the same way as us, it is easier to do whatever you want to do, right? So that's what I'm saying. Shireen, are you?
So it's the master would also have a sense of superiority and the sense of wanting to
Yeah.
subjugate. And that's when it comes in. Rekha, I'm struggling with screen share. I've shared the
Okay.
images with you on WhatsApp. Please, if you
Okay.
can help me out on it.
Okay. Oh,
I'd like you to please play image number 2 first.
okay. It means that I have to sign into
Okay, I'll
WhatsApp and
read
then
out
do
what
it.
I want to tell you all.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Let
Is
me.
that
Yeah.
trauma can be, for thousands of, trauma was not invented in 1619. For thousands of years before that, human beings I want to tell you about the fact that the concept of whiteness, our concept of whiteness, blackness, and race were invented in the 17th century. The term white person, white woman, or white man did not appear in the 1680s, until the 1680s. It was only in the late 17th century that white Americans began in earnest to formalize a culture of white body supremacy. The culture was designed to blow centuries of trauma through millions of black bodies and to attempt to colonize the minds of people of all colors. And James Baldwin's quote, that's the first one. I mean, we can share this with the group. I'm reading it out. I've already read what I want to read from that extract.
Okay.
Rekha.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so the third one I want to say is James Baldwin. He says, imagine one of the reasons people cling to their bodies. Sorry, imagine I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain.
Right. Yeah. Probably. But when you look at it, I'm just going a little bit more backwards to understand how black becomes or dark skin becomes a reason to assume that somebody is lower in intellect, in in economy or whatever standards that you want to measure them, right? Yeah. So when we talk about black or dark people, we always jump into the slave trade, and we look at America, we look at South Africa. But then what you need to understand is that right across the world, dark-skinned people have suffered the most. In fact, my nephew was doing a research, and he said that the world's most displaced people are those people who are coming from Tamil Nadu. The Tamilians have been displaced, taken from their, their state, and they have been taken into various plantations across Southeast Asia for work. And it just connected to me that when we say that across cultures, people who have had dark skin have suffered more than people in other races. And that was one of the discoveries. So when you talk about what is culture, culture is something that is transmitted through language, material objects, rituals, institutions, art, shared history, whatever, from one generation to the next. Now, culturally, if people had to be looked across and looked at just because of their dark skin tone, where did this come from? Right? To a large extent, I want to focus on India because that is what I know about. India is a vast land, and where did this color consciousness come from India? And if you all know that India has the most, I think the biggest sale of skin whitening creams. And, and not only just for women, but for men too. Everyone wants to be fair. And when I was, when Namita, when I was looking, when I registered my elder one, Namita, for her shadi.com, even today she says that I struggled with this concept of wheat skinned. I had no clue what it meant. And she says that I believe that I asked her, can't you be wheat skinned? I believe I asked her in frustration. But that wheat skinned meant that she had to be of some sort of a fair complexion. That was the accepted norm, that she is what domesticated, that was one word used, wheat complexioned, educated, knows cooking, has to be working. One part of my mind did say, if she has all this, does she really need to get married? She can live on her own, whatever. But these were prerequisites. But the skin color was so important. And how did this come to India? Because when you look at it, our most favored god is very dark. They say that he's so dark that he's blue in color, Krishna, that god. So that was acceptable, because we say that we create gods. Even if God created us in his image, we create the gods in our image or whatever. So there was this dark black god on whom the women swooned over him. And that was acceptable. So where did this color, wheat complexion come to India? That was this thing. And that came with colonialism. That when the Mughals came, they were fairer skinned, and fair skinned people got more favors. They were appointed for more positions. So that distinction was created when other people invaded India. So all of us started aspiring to be light skinned because you would get more favors, you would be more acceptable. And when you look at the colonizers, they came from a whole lot of different perspectives, religious, philosophical, scientific, like Darwin's theory of origins, or species origin was twisted to fit this, that survival of the fittest. So you looked at the people whom you were colonizing and decided that these people, unless they were reformed, they had no chances of survival. And that brings me back to another interesting thing, that the word racism was first used in the Oxford Dictionary, or recorded in the Oxford Dictionary, by a man named Richard Henry Pratt in 1902. Pratt was actually railing against the evils of racial segregation. Is there somebody
Excuse
who
me,
not...
Rekha, can somebody, Christine, hi, can you turn your mic off? And somebody else has got their mic
I
off.
can mute her. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So he recorded this because he was rallying against the evils of racial segregation in amongst the Indians. So what he wanted was that segregating any class or race of people apart from the rest of the people kills the progress of the segregated people or makes their growth very slow. So association of races and classes is necessary to destroy racism and classism. Now, his point was, in a twisted way, though he recorded the word racism, his idea was kill the Indian, save the man. What he meant was, this coinage, this phrase was used by him. What he meant was that take what is unique to that culture, the culture of the native Indian, out of that man, to make him civilized and fit into the society, so that you save the man. That was the first idea of, of how racism can be avoided, integrate them or make them like ourselves, right? That I believe some general said that the only good Indian is a dead one. So in a way, he agreed with the sentiment, but what he said, that kill the Indian in him and save him. So we're kind of living in the after effect of something like that, that kind of an attitude that we are talking about, saying that everything else is pagan, and what the occupiers or the rulers or the colonizers, their culture is supreme. And this whole business of being fair-skinned comes from that idea. So religiously, when you look at it, there's an interesting story that they say about Noah, when he saved all the in the flood, when he saved all the humankind, and he took so much of wine that he fell asleep, and one of his sons, Ham or somebody, came in and ridiculed him. And Noah curses Ham, saying that you people of the Canaan will always be the slaves, and the others will always rule over you. And to a large extent, it helped in a religious way to look at people from that area, dark-skinned people, and say that these are people of the Canaans, and they can be slaves. And the other interesting thing is that when slavery itself came up, Africa had slavery. African tribes had the system of having slaves, but that was different in the sense that slaves were the victims, like the prisoners of war. When the tribes had wars, they captured the prisoners of war and made them slaves. So the slaves were looked at as dependents and used for labor. But when the Europeans started the slave trade, is the first time that they owned the person and completely controlled that person's life. So, and it made it easier to treat them like that because they were different. That in their mind, they felt that they were not like us, and that made it easier. During the Greeks, there were discrimination against the Slavic people, again because they were considered as different from the Greeks. So what is different, and if you can control them economically and in a sense physically with power, military or whatever governance, then it was easier to rule over people believing that they were separate than us. At this point in time, does anyone want to say anything?
Just what I put in my chat, in the chat. That,
I want to read that. I saw something about the
yeah,
Bedouin.
I wrote in my chat.
Okay, say that.
Well, it actually wasn't Oman, it was Jordan. I put Oman, but I was astonished that it was a real wake-up call for me. The women who were in their 20s and 30s, we had very little English and Arabic between us, but we could communicate. They were actually Bedouin, so they spoke Bedouin language more than Arabic. And all they kept doing was pointing to my face and the moles on my arms and saying, how did you whiten that? How do you get rid of, what do you do to get rid of this? And I'm like, I don't, it's there. Well, how did you get your skin so white? And these people, they were, the previous generation in Jordan had been in Petra, had been living in cave dwellers, okay? So it wasn't very long. They had actually been taken into houses now and prevented from living in the caves by the country, actually, by the rulers. But that was all that they were interested. There was I wanting to be really interested in their health and well-being and what they were doing, and all they were focused on was my skin, which I think is a pain in the neck. Okay, I don't like my skin, right? Because it's allergic to everything. I'm allergic to the sun. You know, I mean, for me, I don't look white, I look purple. I mean, it's like, and I was always very different from my friends who were all brown. So although it wasn't discrimination, it was I was other. I didn't sunbathe. I didn't want brown skin. It wasn't because of a racial thing, but it was like, so for me, I totally understand. I mean, I get so much privilege from this color, right, but I don't see it as a privilege. It's a nightmare for me, particularly in the Middle East. And this person on the iPhone keeps going across in naked, and I keep seeing a naked body going across. Thank you. And you're being videoed and you're on Zoom and you probably don't want to do that. Okay. So anyway, that was just an observation. I really was shocked when this young woman said to me, how do you get rid of that?
Right, yeah.
Total shock.
Anyone else wants to share? Yeah, Shireen.
Yeah, Rekha, as regards slaves in Islam, during the wars, that's when they were taken captive, and you had the black slaves, and the first man who called to prayer, his name's Bilal. It's recorded that he was a black, and the people frowned on him. Asked the Prophet, can't you find somebody else? Why are you getting the black man to read out the adhan? So that had come in. And when you were talking about this concept of fair, I'm thinking like, you know, the descriptor of non-black, okay, is fair. And what are the connotations of fair? Just, honesty, you know.
Absolutely.
So therefore, I mean, without calling it white or cream or purple, some other color, we call it fair. We identify them as fair. And fair comes with other, you know, as I said, other connotations. And in the fall from heaven, when Adam fell from grace, in Islam, we believe that Eve landed in Jeddah. And Jiddah in Arabic means grandmother. So Islam says that both Adam and Eve descended around Africa. And it is kind of documented
Right.
that first human habitation is around Africa.
Yeah. You look at Christ. If you have gone to Ethiopia and gone to Lalibela, the churches which are worshipped, worship happens even today in those churches. Jesus is just like any other Arab you meet on the street. Dark hair, nice black eyes. It's a wonderful face to see. And I think it's the Crusaders who took him to Europe and made him blue-eyed and blonde, he had no choice after that. That when you look at it.
Well, he wouldn't have survived 5 minutes, I tell you. I would have been like one great big pink blob. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. When I said I was coming to the Middle East, people said, but Sarah, your skin is so white. How can you possibly do that? Like,
exactly. But Sarah, if they could make Jesus European, then you need to be Middle Eastern some way or the other. You need to do something. But when you look at it in that name, then the several crusades that happened, the inquisitions that you look at against people. Where did that come from? You are torturing somebody for being exactly in the image of that person. And I remember Sudha putting it in the group that if you really dig deep, then we are all black, because we came from the apes. When the first ape stood up in the African tall grass to see what is beyond, is there danger lurking? That was the beginning of us. We were black at that point in time. But when, people migrated from Africa, one part went towards the subcontinent, the other towards Europe. Probably that is where the melanin thing kicked in and people started becoming fair. But because Europeans had the economic power that when they started, and interesting is that Columbus, with all his brains, decided that in order to discover India, instead of going east, he will go west because the earth is round and somewhere he will hit India. He landed in the West Indies and he found people, the indigenous people of West Indies, and that's how West Indies got its name, because India, it was not the East India, but the India he discovered in the West. And they first actually made the indigenous people their slaves. And these indigenous people were so untouched. The Europeans brought with them plague and ricket, all kinds of malaria, all kinds of illnesses, and they were dying. That's when one of the Spanish priests, he said that we have to protect them, otherwise this race itself is going to go. So then they decided to bring slaves from Africa to do the work. And that's how they segregated this word, the word indigenous and slaves. So the poor Africans became the slaves. These people became, the natives became the indigenous people. That's how distinctions have been drawn. And I will again go back to India and say that when after the Mughals, after the British, because people were getting jobs, being employed because they had lighter complexions. I mean, everyone has heard of Winston Churchill's infamous quote, right? I hate Indians. They are beastly people with a beastly religion. Yet I know more about Churchill than my own leaders. That's what we have been taught, and we have been told what a great leader he is, right? And when you look at Kipling, Rudyard Kipling has called Indians or the the darker skinned people as a white man's burden. that what is the burden here? The burden is that the white man has to convert these pagans and make them into civilized people, to be integrated into the society that they think that, how we should be. And to a large extent, if you look at us in the subcontinent, we are all striving to fit into that framework of, being, even to put our religion, explain things in a framework that will be understood by a European mind, or to live in certain ways. In fact, when we take out our chai, the tea set and pour tea and ask how many spoonfuls of sugar and how much of milk, that's not us. That is colonialism speaking for us. We are trying to be English or white in so many ways. And I think Sudha should be able to tell us that, in your tea gardens, how much of those traditions are still carried on, right?
Completely. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. We were completely brown sahibs there, and there was a part of my mind that used to be a little apart and said, okay, this is really funny, but I was in that life and I pretended to be a brown sahib lady, brown mem sahib, like everybody else. But fortunately for me, I found it amusing also.
Yeah, I guess that.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Yes? Okay. I think even long before the Europeans came to Africa or India, Southeast Asia, even to the West Indies, our own people, right? Talking about Sri Lanka, we have the hill country, which is in the south central area of Sri Lanka. And then we have the coastal regions. Now, the persons in the coastal regions are darker skin, and in the hill country are fairer skin or light skin. And that caused this development of a caste system, which is also very, very common in India,
Right.
where the persons of a lighter skin were considered a better caste.
Yes.
Right, and they became more powerful, more had more property, would be, rulers, and the persons of the darker skin were considered more the laborer, not slave, but laborer type, fisher folk, cleaners, that type of more menial jobs. And even in China, long before the Europeans went out there, the concept of persons of lower esteem were persons of a darker shade. In Bangladesh, in Malaya, all these countries, you have that long before the Europeans came. I think if you look into South America, you would have a similar type of segregation.
Absolutely.
Before the Europeans came, because there you had the light skin as well as the darker skin. So I think it is in human nature, like Rekha started off saying about the groups, and you look at your group as being for you, and anyone outside being an outsider. I think it is more a way of power, as well as persons trying to benefit one's group and oneself, one's family, build it up by putting down somebody else. Because even after the colonizers came to various parts of the world, the locals who were able to sort of create bonds with the colonizers started putting down their own people. Yes. And trying to build favor with the colonizers. So it's also tied in, but I think the root of it is power, and being able to control.
Yeah, there's a very similar thing that happens in the Middle East When I've traveled with a group of Arab men writing, and we're all out in the sunshine and all day long, and I'm putting my factor 50 on, and I'm covered up and I'm full, da, da, da. Well, they don't bother. And by the end of the 4-week trip, their skin tone is virtual. I mean, you wouldn't recognize them. They are like they've been a laborer. Right. But they've never really noticed it all this time. And I've been watching this thing, oh, they're getting dark. And I keep saying to them, you need to, you're going to damage your skin. Da, 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 da. It's not that just because you've got a darker skin, you're not going to damage with the sun, but you are. Oh, no, it's fine. They come back to Bahrain and they get so much stick for the color of their skin. They're a laborer. They're this, and you notice now that I see the more affluent Arab is a lot lighter skinned
yes.
than the worker, because they've gone to a Western climate, or they're inside all the time with the AC or whatever. So it is fascinating to me that, I mean, and the project leader I was with was horrified at the color of his skin, that it'd gone so dark.
Yeah, true.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure, Mela.
I remember as a kid in school, the first time I really thought about color was when they talked about the Dravidians and the Aryans. And you know how they label them by saying the Dravidians are dark-skinned and the Aryans are fair-skinned. And you didn't give it much thought really till people would tease each other and say, oh, I'm Dravidian, or, someone say, well, I'm fair, I'm Aryan. And it never crossed my mind at all after that, except when I used to go to Kerala. They'd say, oh, you've become dark.
Absolutely.
And then after living here for a while, I don't know, maybe it's the UV rays or whatever, but when I used to go to Kerala, they'd say, you've become fairer. And I'd say, what is this thing with dark and fair? But only after coming to America, I realized how much the media and corporate America dwell on that.
Yeah,
the idea of race, like, I was looking at this golf player. What's his name?
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods. He's Asian, he's black, he's Native American, but they label him as black.
Yeah.
And even Kamala Harris, they never really talk about her being Asian. They say, oh, she's black. Even during the, but I think to a great extent in this country, I feel even in corporate America, it's much more magnified in terms of people assuming that people of darker skins are not as competent or smart to have, managerial positions, or let them prove themselves and then we'll figure out, we'll take it from there. I've never been more conscious of it as when I've been here.
Right. I mean, I think in another forum, I have mentioned this, that when I used to work for Delta, and when we went for annual meetings, as long as I wore a blazer, trousers, and of course my hair was short at that time, people would speak to me normally. But if I wore a sari and a bindi, it was as if they were in slow motion. So where do you come from? Immediately, that whole thing, it's assumed that I do not know English anymore. And do you get it? Of course, bloody hell, I get it, but it's the dress, and that bindi immediately slots me into, like how Mela said, that, maybe she doesn't even know English. We need to speak slowly so that she understands. So perception is that the lighter skinned people, they need to struggle more. And as much as women, we struggle to be in rooms where men, the rest of them are all men, and try to have our voice. I have learned it the hard way that if I get excited about anything, I am told, don't be emotional, but the men can say all sorts of things to each other and they are having a healthy discussion. But the minute my voice goes up, oh, don't get so emotional about it. That's the
You
way
know,
it's looked at.
Rekha, I'm often told by my boss,
Yeah.
are you deaf? Why are you loud? Not
Yeah.
supposed to raise the hello. I'm passionate about my work. And when I make
Yeah.
a point, he feels threatened. And he
Yeah,
says,
absolutely.
women
But
are
you're not
supposed to be
allowed to.
soft.
Yeah.
Nivya's
You're
got
not-
her hand up.
Yeah.
He's from Sudan.
Yeah, especially if you have bosses who come from patriarchal cultures, a woman raising their voice is like a definite no. And
Not acceptable.
I have trained myself to speak 2 pitches lower in order to get attention. And all my life, I have gotten my children's attention by screaming at them, So it was a complete retraining of the self.
Hi, Divya wants to say something.
Yeah, I do. So, I just, this is a very healthy discussion and various different topics or things that we touched upon. But one thing I feel is not about white or black. It's not about, male, female. It's just the way everybody started to look at things. Anything that's different from you is something that needs to be looked at with more caution. I wouldn't say suspicion or it's more caution. So whether you're a woman in a room full of men, so you're different. Hence, they look at you with caution. If you're wearing a sari and a bindi in a room full of people who are dressed in Western clothes, then it's different. And Rekha, you made a point at the beginning that said that, the skin color, your skin is just one layer of the epidermis, right? The color is just one layer of the epidermis. But the thing is, because somewhere you feel like we're all inside. Do human beings even look at something beyond what is visible? So if you're visibly the same, then you're okay. If you're visibly different, then you're not okay.
Yeah.
And all of us are trying to be visibly the same with everybody else.
Absolutely. We are trying to fit in, right?
Yeah,
We are trying to fit into a framework somebody has constructed for us. In that, a lot of who we are gets tossed out.
Yeah.
That's also.
Sarah was talking about the men getting conscious about their skin tone. I want you to know that in India, Levers, they have the Fair and Lovely Fairness Cream. Highest market share is usage by men in Tamil Nadu. Highest market share. And now 80% of the usage is by men.
Wow.
Everyone trying to be fair.
Yeah.
It's a $450 million business, the skin lightening cream business, It's
Even
that huge in India.
Even in Jamaica, the desire to lighten one's skin is so common that they even use these steroids, which are harmful, very
Right.
harmful in the long term. And it's very popular among the young men.
Yeah.
And as a physician, when I examine them, I see these skin changes because you can ask, and they acknowledge that they have been using these lightening creams.
Right.
But even going back, I remember when my mom was alive and my youngest, she's a daughter, used to visit her. Now, my mom used to encourage her to use these soaps that would help lighten the skin, right? And at that time, like when she was like she was under 10 or early teens, these things, subconsciously, she too wanted a lighter skin, my daughter. But now that she is a young adult, she sort of embraces her ethnicity and her dark skin, and she doesn't use any of these skin lighteners. And so much so, okay, the hair also is another point, because someone with the African hair tends to be in a way demeaned, so much so that during the colonizers' time or early independence, a lot of business places used to ask, especially the females, to straighten their hair as a part of their work uniform, that coming to work in your curly knotted hair was not accepted. And I know my daughter, as a little one, she has a mix. So very curly, but not very tight curls. And she still wanted her hair straightened, right? But after she turned 15, 16, she said, no, I love my curls. I want my curls. So it's also how the society influences persons. I remember as a little one, my mom didn't want us to go to the beach in the hot sun. Now, it's not because of damage to the skin, it's because our skin gets dark. And that was a problem. So we used to go early morning or late evening. And now while looking back, I realized, that skin color being lighter, even in Sri Lanka, was important.
Important, yeah. It's so ingrained. It's so ingrained. Yeah.
But it's really weird though, you see, because you see, there's only me and Maria. Well, Maria's Latin American, but me, I guess I'm the minority in the group now. And
You are, Sarah.
I
I'm
had
loving
it. Experience. There was I, at the age of 15, my friend, she put coconut oil on herself. She made herself, as brown as she possibly could. She looked like what I would think of as a piece of furniture. It was that brown, beautiful, polished color. And she kept saying to me, Sarah, you must get a suntan. You must get a suntan. Why aren't you sunbathing? And I was literally covered in spots and itching all day long. So one year I decided I was going to get a suntan. And I went out, put my swimming costume on, I put lotion on, did it sensibly. I was out for 5 minutes, went inside. Next day, I was head to toe covered in spots.
Red.
My mother thought that I was allergic to something. She sent me to the doctor. The doctor goes, what did you do yesterday, Sarah? I said, well, I was going to get a suntan. I stayed out there. And he said to me, well, you either take tablets for the rest of your life or you let your skin boil. You let your blood boiled, basically. You cannot do this. And I'm like, okay, so I've got this shitty skin. So, excuse my language. So as I got older then, all of a sudden it was, oh, don't go in the sun because of cancer. Oh, great, I'm in fashion. I am in fashion, fabulous. But I'm not, because I've just seen an advert. It was back for swimsuits. And there were all these lovely women, tanned and whatever. There was one other woman who was a blonde woman and it was all for different body sizes and whatever. But the one person that they left off was the likes of me, who can't do that. It's like, oh God,
So true.
You never get. To me, skin it's a red herring. I think it's what somebody else was saying. It's about something different. Something different is fearful. And I've been in situations where I've been the only white person is suddenly in a room of 500 Indian Asians in Singapore. And I couldn't understand. It's like, whoa. It was the first time I was a volunteer in Singapore for the Indian Development Association. I had no knowledge up to that point that I was the only white person in the group. It had never even occurred to me that there wouldn't be multiple nationalities in it. I walked into the room and the media suddenly descended on me. Like, no, the other people are organizing it. It's nothing to do with me. I am just a volunteer. I was like, wow, that was the first time I had that experience. It was like,
privilege color.
It never occurred to me, absolutely never occurred to me that I would be the only white person ever. And I was suddenly a celebrity.
Privilege color, privilege color. Rekha, I have a few insights. This is not to do with skin types, but things that we have used in black in our everyday lives, right? Black perceived as power in purchasing, your black credit card. Sophistication when it's black tie or the little black dress. Deep sense, Jo Malone with the black range, more expensive than the white range, by the way. Formality and class, black limo, S-Class Mercedes, BMW 7 Series black.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here, pitch black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black
these-
is premium.
Yeah, it's only on the skin. Everywhere else, they say black is flattering. When you wear it, it makes you look more slim. You look more sophisticated, but not on the skin, Shireen. That is the problem.
That's okay. But black tie event, Rekha, black tie. And
No,
did you
and
get
I have to
it?
But
tell
we
you
like
that,
the men. We like
yeah.
the men tall, dark, and handsome.
No, that dark is a different dark, Usha. It's not black. But you know, when I was starting this session, Namita asked me, "Are you going to tell them about your concealer incident?" And I just want to bring that thing, that how ingrained this is, that I was with them when they said that you need to learn how to use concealers, and they were looking at concealers which would suit my skin tone. And Namita took out a concealer which was kind of dark, and I said, "I don't want this." I want a lighter concealer. And she said, "Ma, but your skin tone will not suit that lighter concealer." I said, "I don't care. I want a lighter." It just goes to show how ingrained that being light skin is, you know. It was such an instinctive reaction. No, this is not me. You know, so when you look at that, and I just want to share two more things with you all on the slide, which is this again, my friend Dr. Amrita sent me, how the dark and the light colored skin is distributed worldwide. You know, if you see the regions which are mostly white to the darkest skin. And I was horrified to see that my own state is in the darkest skin category. I didn't like that at all, I must say. Can you see? It's here somewhere. Yeah, somewhere here. That was a problem for me. So you see, what I'm trying to say is that there are so many biases that play within us without us knowing. And it's interesting that you can look at, there are some tests which tell you in which area your biases are focused, and what you should be aware of when you are dealing with people, especially as an HR person. I find that knowing my biases helps me in, recruitment, because there are people who I have to overcome my own biases in order to recruit fairly or acquire talent for the company. So I just thought it might, if you all would like to do it on your own, these are some of the tests that you can do to understand your own biases. I'll put it in the group. It is implicit association test and understanding prejudice. These are, if you click on those links, it will take you to the test, and you can choose to do that at your own time and space whenever. I'll put those links in the group as well. So that's where I wanted to end, that in order to look at people without the biases kicking in, we need to be completely aware of our own reactions to black, dark. I have now come to believe that the world is divided into black and white. We, the browns, hover between wanting to be in the white camp, but not actually wanting to accept that we belong in the black camp. But in order to understand those biases, we need to understand ourselves, our conditionings first. And that's
Can I
where
say
want to
something,
end.
Rekha? Can I say
sure.
something? Yeah, I think you all may have seen more of me than you should have. I'm not sure.
I think so.
We did.
Only Sarah got you more, I think.
You are really, really privileged people, all of you are. But but I'm on an iPhone with a single screen, so I was under the impression that no one could see me, except when I spoke.
No. But we could see how much work you do at home, unlike many of
I postponed a meeting to hang out with all of you, and I guess showed you more than I should have. But it's been such fun, and I have so much to say for all of this, especially with what's going on in the US in the last few years. But I've learned more than I had to say anyway.
But
So-
Aruna, someday we would like you to invite your son to this forum.
I think he would
Yeah.
have had a lot to say. Yeah.
Could you
yeah.
just explain what he does and what he says?
Oh, well,
that we-
he's a teacher in an elementary school with 40% African American children, and when Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, his school, I mean, he and some of the teachers put on a sign on the school website which talked about power, Black Lives Matter, all of that, and the school, which is a Catholic school, took it down a couple of days later. And he was really upset by that. But as a teacher, he couldn't go against the church. So he organized the parents. He tried talking to them. He said, we have 40% African-American students. We should support this. But they did not want to. So he organized all the African-American parents together. He got them to his house, had meetings, and I had them put this forward, and now the school's back in a big way, trying to support this thing. And he's been very involved in teaching the children about the history of it, not just the civil, what happened with Martin Luther King, but what happened way before that in this country with African Americans, which the Senate, as we say, they are trying to stop teaching the students about that. So there's so much to say, but I had to apologize for what I showed you all this morning. But hey,
Sarah, we
we are
forgive
all
you.
women here, right? We're all women proud of our skin color and our bodies. So here we go.
Rekha, can I say something?
I just want to say, I don't know, we're
Uh-huh.
talking about differences here, but
Right.
what we saw, it wasn't any different.
But prettier though, more beautiful, right? Bye guys. Let's do this. Choose some other topic and do this again. It'll be
Thank
nice.
you for the diversion, Aruna.
Okay. I think
I
Dilni
will
wanted
talk
to
to
say
you.
something.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Dilni,
Okay,
you
so
wanted to
what
say
I-
something?
Rekha,
what
I
I
wanted to
wanted
say
to-
one little thing.
Yeah, sure.
Huh?
Is
I think
somebody else
let
talking?
Dilni go and then we'll come to you, Mela.
Okay.
Yes, Rekha. So there's this movie, All Black Cast, that you really, really need to watch because
I
it's
need-
called Black Panther, and
Ah,
Yeah,
it's an amazing
That's
movie.
one movie I have seen.
you
Dilni.
have, because
Yes.
it builds such a, you feel so proud
Absolutely.
of your color, your race. Having
Absolutely.
watched the characters that bring out the essence of their people,
Yeah,
Of course, you have the good side and the bad ones, like any movie, but
right.
it
Yeah,
shows so
true,
much,
true.
so much beauty and power of the Black nations. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Mela, you wanted to say something?
Well, I just wanted to share something. My godson is half Indian and half white, and he married a Hungarian girl, and they just had a baby. And the picture, the first time when the baby was born, he called me and he said, I have some wonderful news. And then he sends me this picture and he says, this is Ophelia, and look at her color. He said, she's a coffee bean. And we are so excited. I was so happy to hear that. And they call her coffee bean. And then he called me the other and says, she's losing some of that brown color. He was so disturbed. And I was like, well, you look at, my mother used to say, you look at a baby's ears and you'll know what color she'd really be. But
Christine,
I was
tell
also-
your story. Christine, are you still
Sorry?
there? Is Christine still there? She has a very simple.
Yeah.
Christine, you must tell your story of your sister and your father.
Well, is that okay? Okay, so because I'm just in the shop getting Mary's chicken,
Yeah.
our guilty secret. No, because my dad's black and my mum's white. I can't be bothered with all the political correctness. My dad's originally West Indian, and my mum's from Liverpool. And it's okay, I'll get it in the bag. Hold on, I'm just getting the stuff in the bag so I can walk and talk at the same time. Thank you, bye. And by the way, because I was listening to you, because I've lived in Bahrain, I went into the shop and I just did that. I pointed and the guy knew what I wanted because he's Indian. So yay, I love body language and gestures. Anyway, I can't see you. But I'm the only brown-skinned one in my family because all my uncles married white women. So all my cousins are actually white. And I'm the youngest in the family. So when I was born, I think my dad kind of celebrated. Finally, I got a brown-skinned child because my middle sister, she's white skin, very light hair, green eyes, you know, so we couldn't look more different if we tried. It's just, so I've always been brought up in you know, I knew I was brown, and sometimes I fit into one camp, sometimes I fit into the other camp, and sometimes I didn't fit into any camp. And I just, you know, that was the experience I had, and that I think that's shaped me for, sorry, because I'm walking on the street now. That shaped who I am. But most of the time, these days, I really don't feel the color. I mean, I feel very British, but I mean, that's something to praise about. It's just who I am. But unfortunately, I think they politicize everything. Any chance they get, they politicize it and they polarize it and they mean it to put people against each other. That's all I want to say. I'm going to turn the mic off because it's going to get a bit noisy.
Absolutely. I think that is
the thing. I don't know how many of you remember that Times had put O.J. Simpson's picture on the cover when the trial was going on, and they had darkened the picture for more than what he was, and the Times editor had to apologize actually, because black is bad. That was the impression that was being tried to create, and there was so much of protest that Times apologized for that photograph. So even researchers say that when they do research, and if people are asked to identify, like shown a picture of a person and then attributes or traits, most of the bad attributes are attributed to the darker skinned people than the white skinned people. But if you look at it, most of the serial killers like Ted Bundy, Dahmer, all of them were white. You know?
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. We're all evil people at heart. But it is really strange. I mean, I've just been back in England. I've essentially been away 15 years, and I will admit I did not recognize the TV, what was being shown on the TV. Right. There once or twice there was the most remarkable Rastafarian speaking with a Scottish accent, and I would think when he opened his mouth, I saw you know, Rastafarian, I saw somebody from the West Indies, and he opened his mouth, this guy was being interviewed, and oh my God, was he Glaswegian, and I was just killing myself laughing because ever been wrong. And so many now are multiple generations into British. And yet I still thought, oh, he's Rastafarian. Yeah, that was all I saw. And I was like, wow, listen to that voice. And he was more Scottish than a Scotsman that I would class as a white Scotsman. So the TV was LGBT plus, like I had never seen before. It was mostly, I would say, 50-50 white, black newsreaders. It was so different to 15 years ago. So that was definitely a plus. But I would say sometimes when I would hear the voice coming out of what I saw, it was a dissonance because I hadn't seen that before. Yeah. So.
Right. Yeah, I think Swantri wants to say something. Yeah, unmute yourself.
Please. Yeah, just to show something. Thank you. Thank you. Just to add to the conversation, since the topic was on the growth of Black and the growth of prejudices, just to share my experience, because I lived in my primary years when I was like 5 years old to my teenage years, I lived in Africa. And I lived most of my time there before I actually permanently moved to Sri Lanka. So I lived amongst, as in my best friends and my neighbors, everyone were Africans, Coco Africans. And so whilst just interesting how the discussion points, because whilst I loved them, and I admired, I really loved their hair, and I was jealous that I couldn't do much with my hair, but they could plait it in so many different ways and keep it for 1 week without having to wash their hair. But in their case, they looked at me as being the fairest person on earth in my class, with the most beautiful hair, which I hated myself. And there was this sort of hero worshipping of me, or rather my other Asian friends, throughout, to the point of, even when we got punished as a class, I didn't get the most amount of beatings. Like if they hammered someone like with the cane 5 times, I would have got it once and moved on. And teachers didn't scold me as much. So there was this sort of hero worshipping that I felt, but I was small, right? And then I moved to, so I didn't have any prejudice about the Blacks, but what I did observe at that young age was that they did hero worship the non-Blacks. And it was a British colony, and there were a lot of expatriates, and they held the bigger positions in the organizations, and they were given the lap of luxury and all that. So that was that discriminative, or I observed, but I didn't have. I don't think I had. But when I came to Sri Lanka, it was a complete mind shift, because as all of you were discussing about this whole admiration for fair skin and calling babies black as oh my gosh, and all that, it was quite horrific in that sense. It took me some time to understand and appreciate the experience that I had been in Africa, and to be able to not get into that bandwagon. I'm not saying that if I was not in Africa, based on the values my parents passed on to me, I may not have been that prejudiced, but I do appreciate that experience that I had to not fall into the bandwagon. And to this date, I try not to discriminate. Of course, it's very difficult sometimes, because you've got these groups of people who and what's happening around. But I just wanted to share that experience on growing the prejudices.
Yeah, how lovely that is, actually, to to experience that. And that's a question that we need to ask: how racist are we actually? We think ourselves as that we are not, but in so many different ways, so many layers of influences and conditioning kicks into us when we make statements, when we judge a person, or when we perceive a person. And that's something that we need to be aware of ourselves. And there I rest my topic. Hope to see you all next month with another topic. Lovely having all of you here.
Really,
thank you, Rekha. Back to you, Shireen. Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Bye,
all of
everyone.
you.
Very
Bye.
thought-provoking. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you,
Rekha,
Rekha.
for adding me.
Welcome, Reena. I'm glad you enjoyed.
Yeah, really, truly I enjoyed.
I really enjoyed it. I'm glad
Really interesting conversation.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for joining in. Maria, so good to see you.
Yeah,
Safiya?
definitely. So
Hello.
good to see you guys.
The surprise came in late.
Yes, a little bit late.
So nice seeing you. How's
Yeah.
Canada? We miss
Good.
you.
It's really good because we are in the summer. So what's not to like? You have to wait only a few months.
You know that you dated the artwork on the 17th of July last year.
Wow, it's been a year already.
So we are 1 year old today.
I need to make a new. I need to
Yeah.
make a new one. We have to update it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Second year, baby.
So how is Bahrain?
Good. We
How
miss
is
you.
everyone?
We miss you.
I miss
Yeah,
you all.
Bahrain is getting back to normal, I think, with the
going green. We are
lockdown
green.
gone, and we are
Yeah,
in the
we are
green
green.
zone, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I don't think you're in the green zone
Yet.
as the way the other countries see you, because you're still in the red list.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Oh
right.
no, for you.
UK and stuff.
See, that's
But-
another prejudice, Maria,
Yeah.
working
Oh,
against
yeah.
us. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What
But
I also wanted to say was, being from the East, we have multi-layered prejudices. We have color,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
religion, we have ethnicity, we have caste, and we have class. Five,
True.
five
Yeah.
layered navigation that we have to do.
yeah, and here in Canada, it's also, I mean, I'm just learning about how things work here, but with all these residential schools and the finding of these
Barrier.
burials of the kids, which some people think they are a big deal. Other people think that, you know, this is the product of some pandemic, whatever. But this is like boiling, like, oh, everyone is so concerned and everyone has like a very strong opinion about it. And yeah, I think we are always looking for reasons to hate each other.
So true. So true. Anyway, take care, Maria, and see you next month as well. Don't be a surprise guest, but be the first guest to come.
Surprise.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me, and it was wonderful, Rekha. I only saw like half of your work, but it was very good. So, and I love that map. You have to share it with me, because I was noticing Venezuela is the place where all the colors converge. Look at it, and you will see all the colors are there in the tiny little space.
Right,
what got you to
I'll
say
send it to you. I'll send it to everyone in the group for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, there are few studies. If anyone is interested, my friend sent me how in clinical medicine, how race, because of the race identification first, because in the history of present illness, the first thing they write is African American or Asian, and how that builds a prejudice against getting the right treatment. I'll post that to you guys. Yeah, there's another study on why dark people suffer greater around the world. I'll post both those studies to all of you. You can read it at your own time. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so good to see you all, ladies.
Bye. 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 Bye, Sarah. Bye, Usha. Bye, Shireen.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
I don't know if someone wants to stay with me for 5 minutes. I'm happy.
Hi, Rekha.
Yeah, stay there, Maria. Just wanted to ask Shireen, what is next month, August?
Rana is hosting. She was supposed to come this time, but she has no maid and 3 children. She's a dentist by profession. I don't know what her topic is. She asked me what should I talk on. I sent her, go by what the questionnaire is talking. So she will hear back from Rana. And Dindini's husband is doing September for Dementia Month.
Okay.
Yeah,
so then we are set for the next 2 months, right?
Yeah,
and October is mental health, right?
November was this girl, what's her name, Tatiana. She hasn't come back. I would think she's doing it.
Okay.
And December, I have thought I'll take it on and do something.
Yeah, sure. Okay. That's it then.
So how are you, Maria?
Maria,
good.
where are you in Canada?
In Montreal.
In Montreal, okay. So do you have to learn French then?
Yes, that's what I'm doing now. I'm taking an intensive course 8 hours a day, from 8:30 to 4:30, from Monday to Friday.
Is French difficult to learn? Grammar is complicated.
Not for me. For me, not. I mean, it's complicated, but for me, it's easier than from most people, because French and Spanish come from the same root, right? They are both Latin.
So that's easier then.
They're all both coming from Latin. And I studied French when I was really young. I studied for like a year in an academy. So I have I had something to start with. I didn't start from basic level, right? And my husband is also doing it, and we have to do it because we need to work. many people work here and they don't speak
They're very
French.
proud of French because it's a French, Montreal is
It's,
francophone,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
They
it's
would,
francophone.
like in Paris, they won't speak English. I would
Yeah.
believe Montreal won't speak
And they
English.
will, and they, if they have to choose between someone who speaks English and some who speaks
French,
French
for
and
sure.
someone who doesn't, they will pick the person who speaks French. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's what we are doing at the moment. Next month, hopefully, we're moving to our definitive apartment. And our shipment arrived last week, so it's setting.
That's nice.
Oh,
Well,
that's
it's sitting
unpacking
in the
time.
warehouse. It's sitting in the
Okay.
warehouse, but you know, it's happening at the time. So I have been focusing on my French, but now I will have some more stuff
Other
to
things
take care
to
of.
do
Yeah.
as
Are
well.
the
And
children
know,
with you
sorry?
in Montreal? The children are in Montreal?
My son is here. And my two sisters and my daughters are in Toronto. So we went there and picked them up and brought them back. So they
Okay.
stayed with us for a week. So after almost 2 years, we were together as a
Together.
family. That was really nice. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
And that
Yeah.
was what we were looking for when we came here, you know, to be able to
Right.
at least from
Right.
time to time be together and be a part of each other's
Right.
lives. So yeah, really happy for that. Mhm.
Okay, guys, I have to go because someone is coming to see
Yeah,
us.
and I have to go
Maria,
and
catch up
have
soon.
breakfast.
Yeah.
And catch
Okay.
you guys
Take
soon.
care.
Thank you for the evening.
Bye.
It was very
Thank
nice.
you, Rekha.
Bye.
Okay.